Hey friends, hey, it's Lisa from Black Women Stitchin' the Stitch Please podcast. And after a long day, there is nothing quite like finding a HelloFresh box waiting for you at your door. Just the other night, I came home exhausted. I was ready to order some takeout, but there it was, a delightful alternative sitting right there on my doorstep. I had decided on HelloFresh's fast and fresh meals that promise a quick turnaround, box to plate in 15 minutes or less. And let me tell you, that creamy chicken, sausage, and tortellini soup that I made was a game changer. It came with fresh spinach and all the ingredients I needed to make a savory soup base. Everything was pre-measured and ready to use. It was so simple and satisfying to prepare a nourishing meal very quickly. HelloFresh truly saved the evening with a comforting dish that did not skimp on flavor. If your days are anything like mine and you come home tired, you'll appreciate the ease and convenience of HelloFresh. And here's something to get you started. Get 10 free meals at HelloFresh.com/freestitch. Applied across 7 boxes, new subscribers only, varies by plan. That's 10 free HelloFresh meals. Just go to HelloFresh.com/freestitch. America's #1 meal kit, HelloFresh. More than just meals.
Hello, Stitchers. Welcome to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. I'm your host, Lisa Woolfork. I'm a 4th-generation sewing enthusiast with more than 20 years of sewing experience. I am looking forward to today's conversation, so sit back, relax, and get ready to get your stitch together.
Hey friends, hey, it's Lisa from Black Women Stitchin' the Stitch Please podcast. And as I say every week, this is a very special episode because this episode features Laverne Benton, also known as Busy Peach. I think she's the only guest we have had on that has her own theme song. She has her own theme song, and I really hope that we figure out how to bring that theme song into this episode so people can hear the Busy Peach, Busy Peach, Busy Peach. Listen, I'm not doing it justice. So we really do now have to get it in here because now y'all be like, oh, I don't think that song is very good, but it's a bop, okay?
I'll work on pulling it up.
She's got it's a bop. It's a bop. So welcome, Laverne Benton, Busy Peach. Thank you so much for taking the time to come here. She stays busy keeping us peachy. And one of the great things about Laverne is that this gives us an opportunity to talk with folks, talk with Black women creatives who create with textiles, folks who are sewing and quilting. We're creating with textiles, but you all get down to the nitty gritty fundamentals because at the end of the day, there is no textile if there is no fiber.
Well, this is true. This is true. And in our community, you can go from the sheep to the sweater. So every stage in between.
Oh, I love it. And that reminds me of one of my good friends, To Be a Month, says that the sheep is a sacred animal because it does all of those things. It can do, it can do all of that. So that wool and all of that it brings is such an organic and kind of 360-degree craft, which I thought was really cool. But thank you so much for joining us today. I'd love to hear, what is your stitch story? How did you get started? How did fiber arts first come to your attention as something you wanted to do?
Wow. So I think that's a 2-part because they first came to my attention as a child, but then how they came to my attention or were reintroduced to me as something I wanted to quote unquote do was as an adult. So as a child, I was introduced to crochet through my grandmothers, and it was either one or both.
Wow.
One was a Sunday school teacher who always had some type of craft for Sunday school and vacation Bible school.
Yes.
The other would do ceramics and textiles at the senior center.
Wow.
And my mother and my aunt were both artists. And so I grew up an artist. I don't know that I knew I was an artist, but I grew up an artist in an artistic household. And so crochet was one of the crafts or arts that I learned.
Hmm.
Mhm. But I remember, and I have a picture I shared not too long ago of me sitting on the sofa with my granny with my little crochet hook and some yarn, crocheting away.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
And
that's great. Oh my
thank you.
gosh.
And I would say the second part of that is I was reintroduced to it as an adult when I had my second child, working on blankets for her. And then also when I returned to school to work on my master's in business, it was a great stress reliever at the end of the day. So I
Yes.
kind of reintroduced itself to me at that point. And it was also a vehicle, crochet was a vehicle for me moving to a new city from Richmond, Virginia to Atlanta, Georgia. It was the
Hmm.
vehicle I used to meet people who were like minded, like to do something similar to me, that I like to do.
Yes.
And it just helped to bring me into community here in a brand new city. And the story continues from there.
It absolutely does continue from there because in the same way that you were able to move your creative roots from Richmond to Atlanta, you also helped to generate creative community, throughout the fiber world, like the posts, the work that you do as Busy Peach. And I think there's no better example of this for me than the Saturday Shenanigans. That
Yes.
Saturday Shenanigans show has been going on
Yes.
for at least 3 years, it feels like to me. How long have you been doing it?
Since November of 2019.
Wow. Wow. So that's
Yes.
5 years. You are heading into your fifth
Yes.
year.
Yes.
Wow, 5 years worth of shenanigans. Look at
Saturday
that.
morning shenanigans.
So,
Yes.
talk about what made you start Saturday Shenanigans. You are still
Sure.
going strong, 5 years in. You're about to shenan again. Um,
Yeah.
so,
So
so
if you happen to be watching this, you saw some shenanigans just now.
just now.
Listen, the thing about the shenanigans, Saturday morning shenanigans is what it's called, affectionately SMS. And if you are a regular, you're part of the SMS crew. It started in November because another fiber friend of mine, Kim, we were learning about fiber arts. I had already begun my Busy Peach business, but with the introduction of a I don't know if you want to call it a fiber con, right? But a
Hmm.
yarn convention, which I
Wow.
didn't know existed. I was
Wow.
like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to this than just going to your local big box store and grabbing a thing of yarn off the shelf.
Right.
So we decided we wanted to learn as much as we could. And while we were doing that, let's learn out loud. And we did it online on Instagram Live.
Okay.
So we would, either find a topic or think of a couple of topics to think about in advance. But
Mm-hmm.
knowing me, and if you don't, you'll get to know me and her. We would start on one subject and talk our way into five or six different
Oh my
subjects.
goodness.
And they became shenanigans because sometimes Kim would be in the car, sometimes the video would cut out, we'd have a bad signal, and it just became a thing that something was going to go wrong. And it was
Oh.
okay if it did, because we weren't trying to
Mm.
have a perfect, pristine broadcast, right?
Okay.
This was
Yeah.
not a network show.
Okay.
This was us being us. And if something went wrong, it's okay. You just hang in there for the ride, and we would
Yes.
just shenanigan our way through a Saturday morning.
Okay.
So it became a bright spot. We like to be silly and positive. I
Yes.
enjoy talking to people. It's a great space. If you've never been live on Instagram,
Okay.
you can come live, and I provide a friendly face and a loving atmosphere for you to
Yes.
practice and to introduce yourself and tell what's going on with your craft, your hobby, your business, however you describe it. So that's just a general idea what the shenanigans are. They can be so many different things.
Well, I have certainly, and for me, they have been a learning opportunity. That one of the things that I remember is expressions by Munir. I think you had Munir on your show, and his crochet art is very organic and it seems to like engage driftwood pieces. And I'm not sure if he's in
Yes.
the Pacific Northwest or in California, but
Yes. You
somewhere where there's driftwood.
That's right. And the funny thing is I had no idea who Munir was. He
Mm,
happened to pop in on a Saturday morning shenanigan. I don't know how he found me. But one Saturday he took a chance and said, "Hey, I'll pop on and join you." I introduced myself. He introduced myself. We had a great conversation. He took us on a tour of his home, his
yes,
workspace, right?
yes,
Showed us
yes.
all of his pieces. I felt like I was talking to someone from home. There was a connection because he worked with
Wow.
driftwood and my mother worked with driftwood in her art.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I got a little teary during that episode because I kind of felt like a little bit of home, a little bit of mom
Yeah, the
and
familiarity, like you've
yes,
seen this wood like piled up. This means something to you when you see this.
absolutely. And it was just random because somehow on that Saturday morning he was available, I was there and we had a conversation. And so things like that happen a lot on the shenanigans and it's just amazing. I've met some amazing people. I've learned a lot of amazing things, and I can't wait for what else is yet to come.
I wonder if you could travel with me a little bit if I as I think about this as a metaphor.
Okay.
Shenanigans, I love the way you describe what some might call mistakes or mishaps or things that didn't go right or whatever, rather than like sweating it, rather than saying, oh, wow, this isn't perfect. I don't think I want to do it anymore. You make it fun. You make light of it. You say, these are shenanigans and they're going to happen, but
Yeah.
you also keep pressing forward. Is
Yes.
there a story or is there advice in that willingness to keep going in the face of mistakes or conflict or whatever that shows up
Yes.
in your craft practice? If you're working on a project and something's just not going right, rather than let me just throw the whole thing in the garbage, you're like, okay, now I have to pivot and unsew and unfrog it, or as y'all say, ribbit,
Woo.
ribbit, ribbit. Like
Yes.
how does the spirit of the shenanigans show up in your craft practice?
Well, let me take it back to life. I think that life has inspired the idea of shenanigans and how it shows up in my craft practice. One of the things about my mom, she and my aunt both had multiple sclerosis, and
Mm,
so in life, growing up, I just kind of learned that you have to push through and make do. If there's something that you're trying to do, you just make it happen. And if
mm-hmm,
you can't, you find a way to have someone else help you or work your way through that. So challenges with my mom would have with walking or making use of her limbs or her abilities or losing the ability to work on her art, she would find
mm,
other things to do,
okay.
other ways to make things happen, and she kind of taught me to persevere. If you want something done, you get it done.
Yes.
You make it happen. We as
Yes.
Black women, we know what that's like. We
Yes.
get it done.
Yes.
And so I think how that bleeds over into the shenanigans is if we wait for things to be perfect, sometimes we just like we'll never do them.
Mm,
If
yeah.
every time there's a problem or something goes wrong, we give up, half of us wouldn't be here. And
Yeah.
so, I think at a certain point, you just kind of have to decide, are you going to move forward or are you going to give up? And, there's no shame in letting something go. I
Right.
think you need to learn lessons and take lessons from it, from whatever may have happened that you have to either put down or put to the side.
Okay.
But take the lessons and move forward.
Mm,
I have a hard time quitting. I have a hard time saying, I've made a mistake to the point that something has to be thrown away, right? physically I may have to put something in the trash, but what's the lesson that I can take from? I can still take something from it.
That's right. That's
Right.
right.
So with shenanigans, it's just, let's just be, let's just talk. This is who I am. I'm going to present who I am to you.
Yes.
These are the things that I have questions about that I want to learn and listen. We'll talk about them. I'll share some of my personal life, some I won't, but it's just it's a forum, and it's a way of, on a Saturday morning, just allowing yourself to kind of be.
Yeah.
How that shows up in my art is, I started the business Busy Peach LLC,
Mm-hmm.
selling finished crocheted goods. Well,
Ah.
that went okay, but it wasn't bringing what I thought was supposed to be a lot of revenue. And,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the idea of, if I'm doing a custom piece for you and we agreed on this color, but then I made it and you decide you didn't like that color, but I've
Ah.
spent hours and hours working on this for you.
After we agreed,
After
like,
we agreed.
oh
Yeah.
no.
So I was like, I don't know if this aspect of it is for me, but I still enjoy crocheting.
Yes.
So what does that mean? During the pandemic, I discovered dyeing. One of my fiber friends said she was going to dye some yarn. I was like, really, at the house? She's like, yeah.
You
So
don't have to go to dye machine camp to do this. You can
no.
just do it in a kitchen. What?
And something about me, I'm like, oh, we can do that. Let's try it. Okay, let's try it.
Yes.
She didn't invite me to try. I just kind of invited myself. I was like, okay, well, I want to do it too.
Exactly. Hey, friends. Hey, I know you're enjoying the audio version of Stitch Please, and thanks so much for listening. But you're missing out on all the great stuff going on behind the scenes. That's why I'm inviting you to join our Black Women Stitch Patreon. For as little as $5 a month, you can see all the video versions of the podcast. Plus, you get some amazing swatch cards. You know how much I love these swatch cards. Look, see how cool these are? Oh wait, you can't see them because you are not yet on the Patreon. So when you join the Patreon, you'll be able to see this, me showing you these amazing cards. We also have some great perks at the other tiers, like discounts, swag, office hours, and more. Don't be the last sewist in the group now. Head over to patreon.com/blackwomenstitch or click the link in the show notes and become a Patreon supporter today. We truly cannot do this without you. So thank you so much.
I fell in love with it. And if a color didn't come out right, I would hold on to it and look at it like, oh, this is not what I wanted it to be. But then I learned it could be beautiful to someone else. So I
Yes.
would still put it in my shop and sell it as oh, I forgot what I had called it on the website. But you know how the stores will sell like fruit that has a little dent.
Oh, yes,
Um,
yes, yes.
yeah, so my little burnished, produce, right?
Right.
Imperfect produce, right?
Imperfect produce.
Right.
Exactly.
So
Get
the
it
things that
today.
that's right, that's right. And so those would sell because people were like, well, it might not be purple, but it's a pretty purple. So
Yes,
they
that's
didn't
right.
necessarily know it was a mistake that I made. It was a mistake to me because it just wasn't what my vision was, but it was beautiful to them. So, also in my art, just trying different things. If I like it and it works, great. I'll share it with the world. I'll put it out there. I had an art teacher that one time said, you need to let go of the preciousness of your art sometimes, and that can be
Yeah.
difficult. Um,
Yes. Let go of the preciousness. Wow.
right.
That is yeah, because artists do it because it is precious to us and it's come out of our heart and our imagination. And no, this isn't just a piece. It is a piece of me. And when you
And and as Miss Badu says, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive
sensitive.
about my
Exactly.
right. And
Yes.
and we can be. And so sometimes you have to let go of the preciousness of it and release it out into the world and let the world consume it, and use it for what they may see.
That's right. That's
I
right.
hope that's a
That's a
good long
beautiful.
answer
It's
to
a
a
it's
short
a
question.
it's a beautiful answer because it's about a process.
Yes.
It's about a process. It's not about an outcome. It's about
Yeah.
a process. And what you're describing is a process where mistakes are allowed. And
Yes.
what I find so important about that is that sometimes when folks are learning something new, they're afraid to make a mistake.
Yes.
And also I've learned that for adult learners are afraid to make a mistake. And what I think is so sad is mistakes are essential to the learning process. If
Right.
you don't do it wrong sometimes, you won't learn to do it right.
Right.
There's lessons from all of it. Um,
But what is right? I mean, when it comes to art,
yeah, that's a good point
that's a
too.
question, right?
That's a good point too.
What is right?
Yeah, what
I
is
have a
right?
piece that I've worked on, that is
Oh,
full of
yes.
French knots. I call the pattern and the piece not your average fro, right?
Nice.
KNOT, not your
Right?
average fro.
Beautiful.
And it is a piece that is full of French knots.
Yes.
Now, if you were to look at all of these, they are not perfect French knots. Some of them are
Mm,
wrapped twice, some of them are wrapped three times. Some of them have two colors, some of them have four colors. Some of them are loose, some of them are super tight. So you could sit down and take this piece and look at it and go, I mean, they're French knots and it's cute, but they're not really French knots. I
mm.
don't care. I enjoyed it.
So,
I
and
enjoyed it. I love it. I think the piece is gorgeous. Other people have thought so and they're trying to make their own. And
yes.
so maybe I didn't make my French knots right, but they're close and I like it. So there it is.
And I think the and I like it is the most important part.
Right.
It is the most important part. I think that sometimes when you're working with a pattern, for example, there are some folks who want it to look exactly like the pattern. And if it
Yes.
doesn't look exactly like the pattern, then they think they have done something wrong, right? Or have made a mistake, as
Yeah.
opposed to using the pattern as a guide.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of that too because I'll look at something and I'll go, "Oh, I could never make a top like what you're wearing with collar and buttons and buttonholes and straight lines." And so I'm just not going to go there. Well, I can sew some other things. So I do
Exactly.
that and that makes me happy, either by
Yes.
hand or with the machine, whether my lines are straight or not. And so I try my best to try to find a way to just enjoy my art, enjoy my practice, enjoy my craft, my hobby, and release some of that pressure of perfection.
Yes. It that I think that is really powerful because it reminds all of us that we are the source or the center of our creative fountains.
Hmm.
And we
Absolutely.
have to give ourselves permission to be that.
Absolutely.
And I just really think that's so powerful what your teacher advised you to do, which is to release the preciousness.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if it's so precious, then how do you sustain it? You know?
Right.
Like that's hard to do. That's hard to do. Um,
Or if you hold it too precious and too tight and too close and you don't share it, it may not inspire someone else. And that's okay. That's okay.
yeah,
Sometimes it's
that's true.
okay. It's okay to have something that you make just for you and to keep for yourself. But then I also believe that I think art is to be viewed and to be, I guess, consumed or observed. And so you never know who you might inspire with your art, your
Yes.
process, the final
Yes.
product, or what have you. So put it out there in the world and let it inspire someone.
I absolutely agree. And I can also say, just as someone who has been a recipient of your creative generosity, I am holding one of my absolute favorite of all time amigurumis. Is that what these are called? I'm calling.
Amigurumi.
Are you sure that's what it's called? Because that looks weird. Say it again.
Amigurumi.
And listen, y'all, I was calling it amigurumi. Okay. And she kept saying that it's not right, that these have way more syllables than I am giving it. So it's not a roomy groomy. What is it again?
Amigurumi.
I am holding an amigurumi, and it is adorable. And she made this for me. And every time I look at his little tiny fins, I'm like,
Yes.
how did she do that? What kind of, this is the thing that I find really engaging about crochet and
Yes.
working with fiber. You can use your crochet hook to create this
Yes.
beautiful toy that I absolutely cherish. And you can use the same hook or a similar size one to make a hat, to make
Yes.
socks, to make a necklace, to make,
Yes.
like, how? Like, does it take 1,000 years?
Well, it definitely takes a significant period of time, right? And it is all dependent upon your skill level, the amount of time that you have, whether you do it in one setting or not. There's so many different variables. Just like as a sewist, whether
Mm-hmm.
you are hand sewing or machine sewing, it is
Yes.
going to take time and
Yes.
there is a process,
Yes.
right? So there is if you think about when you make a garment from start to finish,
Mm-hmm.
you begin with an idea or a pattern,
Right.
right? Or an idea and then a pattern. You
Yes.
have to cut, you have to prep, you have to assemble your tools, you
That's
have
right.
to then create it, you then finish it, and then you wear it. And so it's the same thing with crochet, knitting, weaving, spinning, dyeing, all of those things is that you go through that process of from the idea to the gathering of the tools to the creation of the
Hmm.
item, to the finishing and then the use or display.
Yes.
And so that timing is variable, right?
Yes.
So the piece that you were holding, which is a miniature amigurumi of Darwin, that is made from embroidery thread, and
Wow.
so in a size B crochet hook. And so some of your listeners may be going, size B, that's 2 millimeter hook. They may be going, I could never. You
Is
could.
is that about the size of a toothpick? That's what I'm
Yeah, I
envisioning.
mean it's it's
That's what I'm
pretty
envisioning.
small. It's
Hmm.
pretty small with a little hook at the end. But
I'm just
the
like,
key.
she really likes me. That's what I say. Whenever I look
Oh
at, I
yeah, I
say,
do. I do. Because
Laverne, this is this.
yeah,
I am make worthy. You know what? I
you
am
are.
make worthy because there ain't no way. I mean, look at this. She made this for me. Like,
That's right. That's
y'all,
right. But
what?
it gave me pleasure, right? I enjoyed it. Was a pattern from someone else, but I enjoyed the challenge of it, right? Creating
Mm.
a cartoon character. I had not done that yet. I had not done it with embroidery threads. I did that because I wanted it not to take forever and a day. Um,
Uh-huh.
but working with a smaller thread and a smaller hook does can slow you down a little bit. It did for me. But I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the size, I enjoyed the feel, the texture of it, and so it was something
Mm-hmm.
different. So it was a good challenge for me to create something that you appreciate.
Oh my
um
goodness, I love it so much.
yeah, and then but on the other hand, I look at something that you gifted to me,
Oh.
which is this very beautiful and colorful hat that I absolutely love. I don't have too many days in Georgia that I can wear it, but I enjoy it. And I look at it and I go, okay, she had to think of the idea. She's had the fabric for a while. You know, was she going to gift me this fabric or something else? Right? How did you decide to line it or not?
Mm-hmm.
Which stitches you decide to use, right? As a sewist, there are a couple. I can look at this and dissect it. There's one type of stitch used to hold the satin and the fleece together,
Mm-hmm. That's right.
at the edge versus at the middle of the
Middles.
piece.
That's
And
right.
so you can kind of dissect and look at all of these things, and where this might, I don't know what was the timing that this took you to make.
Mm-hmm.
It may take me twice as long. It may
Well,
take
that's
me
true.
half as
That's
long.
true.
It really
That's true.
depends.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. It's so true. But I think one of the things that you're hitting on is the joy of making something for someone you care about and who
Mhm.
you know will appreciate what you give them.
Yes. Yes.
Like that is, I think, and that is part of the creative community. Like that is another blessing of creative community that you're working with people or alongside people or in
Yeah.
solidarity with folks who all share a respect for things that people make, things that people dream up.
Yeah.
That's, I think, is really important. And that's something that not everybody has, So I really think that that is a special thing, to make something for someone who is going to appreciate it.
And I agree with you. And I really feel like, social media plays a big part in helping define that community.
Yes.
Because especially during the pandemic, we all began to use social media and Zooms and all of these electronic tools and methods that we hadn't used, may not have used before.
Before.
But one of the things that I like about it is I would be disheartened sometimes over on one particular platform. I would be in groups or see people making posts, and it's like, hey, I crocheted this sweater. I thought it was cute, but my husband didn't like it. Or he, says, why am I wasting my time? Or I gifted something to, a friend and she thought it was ugly. I love
Yes.
the idea, the fact that with social media, you can use it to reach out to community, to find people that will appreciate those things, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so whether the color selection may or may not be what you choose or like, there are forums and spaces where we can talk to each other as creatives
Yes.
and encourage, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so maybe the color selection didn't come out the way that you like. Well, what would you do different? Or could you add to it? Or could you change it? As opposed to, I don't like that. That's ugly. Or why are you wasting your time? And so for me, social media, the shenanigans, which are on Instagram on Saturday mornings, I like using it for good. There's a lot of
Yes.
negativity out there. There's a
Yes.
lot of information out there, but I
Yes.
really enjoy using it for good and to help to spread positivity and build that community where you can find your people, you can find your space, even if it's just one other person.
That's right. That's right. Because sometimes that's all you need, and it can be a very strong beginning. Now, listen, I cannot believe that we have reached the end of our time. So now I have to ask you the question that I ask everyone on the Stitch Please podcast, and it is this. The slogan of the Stitch Please podcast is that we will help you get your stitch together. Laverne Benton, Busy Peach, what advice do you have for us to help us get our stitch together?
I would say be peachy. That is my focus in this season. Being a peach, right? And so I break that down as P for positive, E for encouraging, A for audacity, C for creativity, and H for happiness. And that means, spread positivity, be positive, find the good in things, right?
Yes.
Encourage yourself,
Yes.
encourage other people, right? Find
Yes.
someone to encourage you.
Yes. Yes.
Create audaciously. Don't let
Yes.
anybody hold you back. Forget
No.
the naysayers. Don't let people poo poo on your parade.
That's right.
Create audaciously, right?
Yes.
See creativity. Try all of the things. You don't have to
Yes.
limit yourself to just one thing. You
Mm-hmm.
can try all of the things. If you want to sew, if you want to knit, if you want to crochet, if you want to paint, if you want to sculpt, whatever it is that will make you happy, be creative and do it. So work on being a peach. Being a peach will help you keep your stitch together.
And on that note, we thank you so much, Laverne Burton. Thank you. We thank you so much, Laverne Benton. Thank you so much.
No problem.
The
Now,
way
don't edit that out because that's part of the shenanigans.
That's part of the shenanigan. Just like you said, it was a shenan, and we gonna shenan again. And we can find you. We can find Busy Peach. Where can we find Busy Peach? And where can we see the shenanigans as we head into the 5th year of shenaniganing?
Yes. You can find me on busypeach.com, BZYPEACH.com. That way you can find links to all of my social media. I prefer Instagram. That's where I'm happiest and where you'll find me most often. If you send me a DM, I will typically respond to you there. And that's the biggest thing. If you search Busy Peach on any other platforms, you'll find me there, but the most up to date is on Instagram or on my website.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Laverne. This has been a wonderful time. I'm so grateful.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Stitch Please, the official podcast of Black Women Stitch, the sewing group where Black Lives Matter. We appreciate you joining us this week and every week for stories that center Black women, girls, and femmes in sewing. We invite you to join the Black Women Stitch Patreon community with giving levels beginning at $5 a month. Your contributions help us bring the Stitch Please podcast to you every week. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your support. And come back next week and we'll help you get your stitch together.